having abilities, you know what's interesting? We all have them. It depends on how you shut down those abilities, tuned into the abilities. And what do I mean by abilities? They're the clairs. There are extrasensory perception. It is our six senses, but they're extra. It is seeing, hearing, knowing, feeling, tasting, and the ability to see beyond. Like when I'm hearing the other side, that's clair audio. And I don't always pick up 100% of what they're saying. So that means more practice maybe. Now, clairsentencing or clairtouch is that I don't have to touch an object. I can touch it in my mind, but I don't have to touch an object. Sometimes I can touch an object, like psychometry, which is good, but you don't have to. When you're touching, you have this sense that images, pictures, sound, smell, whatever it is that you are connecting with, sometimes a knowing, a sensation, a feeling. But what I really found out with all of them is that what kind of file system do you have inside here? What kind of file system do you have so that when you're reaching in and listening to that frequency and that bandwidth, now, what kind of information do you have? So when you're communicating with the other side and loved ones, or you're connecting to the signal of the soul of the person that you're reading, how is it that you're going to communicate? Because it's a language that goes beyond English and any language that any human speaks. Excuse me. It goes beyond. It is a light language. It is frequency. It's sounds. It's color. Emotions are huge. You know what those are. How was I trained? I remember just being little and it was just natural. Then I got scared of it because I didn't know exactly what it was, because the people around me's belief systems were, oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's evil. And it kind of scared me because I thought they were right because I was a young girl. When you think that they're right and you're wrong, that can start shutting you down. Then in my teenage years, I'd have people come to me and, you know, it's not just about advice. I realized these people were asking certain questions. And I didn't realize I was given intuitive information. Then the scariest thing happened to me. I was 16. I broke up with my boyfriend and then we got back together. Now he cheated on me, and my belief was, you cheat on me? I don't care how much I love you. You ain't gonna do that again. And I said I was done. Wanted nothing to do with him. And which was fine. Then he begged and begged and begged and begged and begged and begged. My mother says, oh, just give him another shot. I said, all right, I can do that. So I let him back in, and okay, you open up your heart, and I let him back in. And during that time that we were separated, I had a friend that was a guy, and I just wanted a man's opinion of why, what happened. And the guy was really nice to me, and we were friends. I found out a little later that he had a major crush on me for many years. I did not know that. But there was one night. Now, I lived in the apartments, and down at the end of the apartments was a car wash. Now, you couldn't see three of the stalls, but the one stall had an open end, so you can see people drive in and around. So my friend came over that night in his truck, and he asked me, do you remember so-and-so? He had to leave and move. I said, oh, yeah, and I was talking to him, and all of a sudden, I had this creepy, eerie feeling, and I looked down at the car wash, and my boyfriend had a green Nova. Now, it was a junker, you know, loud, and kind of frightened me a bit when I saw it because it just looked like it had teeth. And then I went into a vision. It was so quick. There was like, you couldn't count the time. There was no such thing as time. But I saw what I said to the guy in the truck. What I saw was them driving off and doing that thing. I heard the police sirens. I felt every motion that I did. And I guess the time span would have been about 2 hours that I saw. But within that split second, I came out of that, looked up at my friend, and he said, should I stay or go? And before I could even register what I had saw, and out of my mouth says, go, no, stay. It was too late. He took off. Everything was in slow-mo. I slowly grabbed, went inside the house, got the police scanner, went up to my bedroom, looked out the window. I knew what side to look out of. And I just was waiting because I knew what the police scanner was going to say. I knew what was going to happen next. I knew it. And it all unfolded. I could hear the police scanner. I could hear them saying certain things. And then I just had to wait. And then there goes the police car with the sirens in that direction. And then I had to wait some more. And so then I just went downstairs and cried because I just couldn't handle what I had saw. Then a couple hours later, my friend, he survived, come knocked on the door and had to explain to me. And it's like, I don't want to know. Because a part of me already knows. I don't want to know. My boyfriend didn't die that night, but he did go brain dead. So he ended up dying 9 days later just because they pulled the plug because there was no blood flowing through the brain. That time allowed me to let him go, but it also shocked me in my spirituality to shut that down and say, I'm done. Don't want nothing more to do with it. Because of the shock of the death and what I saw, I don't really remember 2 years of my life. I graduated high school, entered going to college, went into accounting. I don't like math. Don't know how I got talked into it. I just remember sitting in college in the classroom. I woke up and looked around and I thought, where have I been? And I had to think about it. What year was it? What was going on? I'm not in high school. Thank God. And then little pictures of things like high school about I had such a hard time graduating, but yet I didn't. I made it through. And just little pictures here and there. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, oh, and then I remembered what I said. I'm like, Then I got married, and then I had to come home. I had a 2-hour drive back and forth all the time to my mother's house because I had to find out whether or not if she was going to be okay. I got to experience another intuitive thing that I couldn't stand. My mother, she went to the doctor and he says, oh, you have something on the side of your neck. And you go to see the gynecologist. So before pre-internet, we're like, gynecologist. And all of a sudden I had this flash, and I didn't realize it had come from her soul, but it was, yep, going to go through this bitch slap. And, and we're like, neither one of us could comprehend anything. And we got there, and then the doctor told us, and it's like you go deaf. You can't believe your eyes. And then my mother asked, how long do I got? Now, there is no toe tag for an expiration date, but she still asked it. They said 1.5 years at the most. I think that just spiraled me out even further because there was a part of me that knew on another level, again, I wouldn't bring all my intuition, but on another level, that, oh my God, this is it. It wasn't just, oh my God, my mom's going to die. I had to learn to respect my mother's decision on a soul level. And I'm like, I don't even want to even, what? No, don't even. And you just keep shutting down. Well, I kept coming back. So the 2-hour drive there and back to where I lived. And then I had to she gave me the spare room to stay when I had to, travel back and forth too many times. And that was fine. During that time, I read the Bible 3 times, forward and backwards. And what I found at the 3rd time around, it was all man's opinions started to disappear, and all I saw was energy, frequency. Before I understood what chakras were, meridians, before I understood those. During that time, I met a shaman and a faith healer, ministers, preachers. And this one, he looked at me, and I was like naive because I had shut everything down. And he says, "You need to get back into it." I'm like looking at him like, "Who, me, what?" No. So he says, "You might want to read these books." And so he showed me what books that would help me understand energy flowing, electricity, we're electromagnetic beings. And so I said, okay. So I bought them, took them home. I decided to read them, and all of a sudden it was, now I have no choice. I need to embrace this part I shut down so that I can help my mother. And so I slowly let Spirit start teaching me. So Spirit was my biggest teacher about everything. And in the Bible, it said hands-on healing. And I was determined. And I said, you better show me what hands-on healing you're talking about that's in the Bible. Well, my mother lived 4 years, and then she passed. And then I took care of my sister. She was already in high school, but then she was done. I got married. And then I'm pregnant. 8 months out to there, and I'm watching TV, and then I hear hands-on, up next, hands-on healing. What? And it was a show called The Other Side, and it was on Channel 10. And I perked my ears up because I had kind of been on a download to some degree. Now, I've been using gratefulness, synchronicity, everything to get to where I was. And then all of a sudden I was trying to understand it, but I couldn't understand what I was seeing. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, I get this piece of paper. It says, "Welcome to Body, Mind, Spirit." And I'm like, I don't even know what the heck that is. That was all foreign to me. Being pregnant, I asked my sister and my husband, can we go? Sure, they took me there. And that was a world that I was scared the hell of. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Wait a minute, weirdos, wait, what? And Spirit says, you need to go all the way in the back, and then you turn right, and then you stand at that booth. And the next thing you know, I left everybody behind, went down there. Now, I was extreme introvert. I did not talk. I did not ask questions. I kept to myself. And I got back there, I looked at the guy, and I'm thinking, but it's a guy. I can't talk to a guy. Well, how am I supposed to talk to a guy? And then I heard, shut up. And out of my mouth, which I don't remember saying, was, do you know anybody that does Reiki? Now, I did it so fast, there was no way to understand that language. And I'm like, okay. So he says, yes. He says, here's my wife, Sharon. And I'm like, what? And I don't know where she came from. She just like popped out of nowhere. She's a Reiki master. What? Hands-on healing. Yeah. What? Again, my brain was saying, I don't comprehend this. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have this. I don't have that. But yet it was like, I don't care. It's the unknown. I know I'm supposed to know this stuff. So she ended up becoming my teacher, and she was quite an incredible woman. I worked for her. I learned from her. She taught me basically all about energy, and she was so magnificent. She saved the life of my children twice. One time my daughter got an inoculation, her immune system, and she was a happy little child, and all of a sudden she was limp as if she was dead. There was no energy, no life force. Her eyes wouldn't open up. Took her to the doctors. They said, oh, she's fine. I said, are you kidding me? I'm bawling. I take her to my Reiki master, and she says, give me her. So she held on her for 20 minutes, and the next thing you know, I started seeing her color come back. And she told me, she says, well, I just took and removed the shock, and I took and removed the chemicals and this and that. Now, it's not about removing. She'd be so upset that I said those words, but it was a transformation of the Phoenix symbol that I am also a Reiki master, and she has passed all those symbols on to me. And my daughter came back to life. I was so shocked. And my son had got hit in the baseball bat in the eye, slit it open. He was only like 4 years old. No, not even that, 2, 3. I can't even remember now. My daughter was still an infant. And I looked over at there was an ambulance person there, and the next thing you know, I'm like looking for them to help. And they're said, well, you just have to drive them. It'd be quicker. There was no assistance, no nothing. I was just in complete shock. I look over at my Reiki master, and she's got this. And she's over there. She looks at me, she just, go. And instantly it was this, everything's going to be fine. So I'm good under pressure. Threw the child in the car, my husband in the car. I drove to the hospital. We get there, checked him in, and I went outside and fell apart. But I still had this confidence. All the knowledge that I knew. The next thing you know, the more knowledge that I end up getting, and I'll tell you, Spirit says, I want you to study this and study this. And I want you to apply this. I want you to apply this. I want you not only to learn this, but now I want you to learn that the moment you learn something, you speak it. You tell somebody else. Because it's the way the brain functions. Because if you just read it and don't talk about it, just imagine that your brain, the way the brain fires is like a tree, okay? And every new information are like leaves. And if you don't recall it, talk about it, witness it, do anything, then the leaves fall, and this thing called the glial, G-L-I-A-L, glial cells will come along and vacuum everything up so you forget. The more you witness it, the more you talk about it, the more you teach it, the more you're becoming from a student to teacher to teacher to student. And then all of a sudden this beautiful rhythm goes back and forth, and it's very, very beautiful. And the next thing you know, you start remembering things. And then when you're connected to spirit and you're doing that, people wonder how I can recall so much so fast. It's not just me. I'm connected to my higher self. I don't go to my ego first. I go to my higher self first. I go to my ego last. And most people have shut down that higher self and have learned to take any information, go to the ego first, then maybe go to the subconscious mind, and then maybe talk to the higher self. It creates for a lot of disconnection. So I learned to go to my higher self. I've learned to communicate with my soul. I've learned to communicate with my unconscious mind or my subconscious. And it's just about recalling. So spirit was, after my teacher, we separated, and she went her way, I went mine. And spirit sat down every day and started to teach me. I want you to study this for 2 weeks. I mean, not just pick up the book. It means heavy duty study and never put the book down. I would read it, write it. And in school, I would have a hard time comprehending because I was what you called a sensory being and a feeling, a kinesthetic. So I could see things, but I may not comprehend it. I could hear things, but the words would scramble in my head. So I learned that I had to write, see, draw, connect. I had to feel it, know it, feel it, know it. And when I did that, it was all about defining. And as soon as I started to define itty bitty words, it was amazing, because then I started to think about it over and over.